God damn it.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. Take the truth. I'll set you free.
How's it going? Can you see me, hear me?
Yes, I
All
can.
okay?
You look like you.
So,
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me for this. This is really cool. Really appreciate it.
yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is awesome. Well, hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Face the Truth. This is going to be really cool. Gosh, I think I met Lindsey like 2015, I think, at the Caricature convention, like the year Grieger came, something like that.
Yeah, 2015 in Sandusky.
So it's been a little bit. I remember at the convention, I was like, who is this chick everyone keeps talking about, and obviously amazing work. And I've been following from a distance throughout the years. But anyways, she's an amazing illustrator, character designer, caricaturist. And I'm curious which way she prefers to put the toilet paper, over or under. We'll get into that later. But everyone, please welcome Lindsey, is it Olivares?
That's pretty close, yeah.
Olivares. You gotta say it with the the stretcher pants. Yeah, Olivares. So welcome. Thanks for joining me for this. This is awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
So you have had an amazing year with this little cartoon you worked on.
Yeah, these little cartoon characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how you been doing?
I've been good. It's been really exciting to have the movie that I've been working on come out, because it's been a long time in the making.
Yeah, I imagine.
I started on it in 2015, so around that time that we met. Yeah.
That's crazy. So you now, when you say you started it back then, was it an actual hey, this movie is going to happen and you started working on it, or was this like your first ideas, like your dreams in your mind of characters and stuff like that?
Oh, it was at the time when I started working on it, the director of the movie had just started at Sony Animation, and so he was pitching there. It's like he was employed by the studio, but it was that early pitch phase where he's developing his projects there and kind of pitching them towards a green light. So he found my work, contacted me about helping with some character design and some illustrations for his first pitches. But it was really it was just really early. Like, it was really, unclear if it would get made. There's a lot of work that never gets made, because I spent a long time doing freelance, and I worked on lots of almost everything I worked on when I freelanced never got made. Yeah. So there's a lot that's, it's great. It's great work to do early development, but you never really know what things are gonna get off the ground. And so it started really slow and early, but it was nice because I kind of formed a nice relationship with the director, and just kind of us throwing out ideas and kind of finding it together. And then it was really slow for a while, but it was around 2018 that we actually started making it.
Oh, that's crazy. That is pretty amazing. And I got to say too, so I've loved your caricature work.
Thank you.
It's I've said this so many different times, and I'll try not to sound like a douche. But I like caricature. Okay. But it's not like the art that inspires me, It's not like, I like a lot of painters and stuff like that. I love character design, Peter DeSev, so there's a lot of different artists that I'm really into. Caricature is one of those things where there's so many caricature artists that it's a little bit ridiculous, and it's hard to keep up, and there's so much that's just the same. It's not like, oh wow, every once in a while there's something that's different. And I say all that because your work has been something that I noticed years ago. There's a uniqueness to it. You've got an interesting, it's just, I love, for example, The other day I was just looking at your Instagram character or your website, sorry, and like your Elon Musk, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, damn it, like it's funny because I love seeing a caricature that's really good, that's completely in a different direction than how my mind would have saw it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what's one of the most amazing things about caricature, I think.
Yeah, totally.
And but yeah, I love your caricature stuff. I think that it's you've got a really unique voice. And I'm curious, I want to talk about the animation that you worked on, but just like with the caricature stuff, what was your, like, how did you get started in that? And I'm sure it took years for you even to develop that style or your own kind of voice. But what was kind of like what led you to it?
I feel like it was just kind of a progression from like observation drawing, you know, like especially in the college era, like I always had my sketchbook on me. I was always drawing in class, always drawing friends in class and drawing people. I don't know if at that point I thought of myself as a caricature artist or if I was quite doing caricature. But it started like just drawing people. And I think eventually I got to the point where I was less like practicing how to draw and trying to life draw well. And I just was more having fun and breaking things. And I feel like that kind of origin is just kind of like observation, drawing.
Yeah.
And then I feel like the moment that I feel like there was more of a switch, I think it was just like on my first job working at an animation studio with coworkers that were, you know, a mix of viz dev artists, character designers and stuff, that we'd have a lot of times we were just sitting around drawing each other. And there were some people too that were not caricature artists by profession, but very good at it. And I think drawing with some of those coworkers, there's one guy in particular that whenever people ask me, it's always like a very memorable day to me. And it was, there's a character designer, Craig Kelman, who's pretty veteran character designer and super talented. And he mostly would work remotely, but the day that I met him, he came to the studio when we were working on Madagascar 3. And it was actually when like iPads were new. And my friend had an iPad and we were playing on it and we started just drawing each other on the iPad. And then we just drew each other for hours. And we both have kind of distinct faces. And it was the first time that somebody drew me like pretty aggressively and they looked just like me. And we were both kind of like, had that same interest where you're kind of addicted to trying to capture little expressions somebody makes while they're drawing or trying to play ways. You can do a feature, you know, with like, how many ways can you keep drawing this person? We drew each other like afternoon through after work and like both had like walls of drawings of each other in the office. And I was like, oh, this is really fun. That was the first time that I think having someone really exaggerate me, I felt more comfortable doing it back because I was never very aggressive about how far I would push things. And so that I feel like kind of opened something for me. And then, I would draw them with coworkers and stuff, but it wasn't until I left the studio that I was in and I started freelancing. And I felt like caricature was this thing that I wanted to end up as a part of my freelance work. I was hoping to do some illustration work, some freelance animation work, but wanted to kind of explore caricature. And so I did some like live events, like different conventions. And I was like, well, let me try doing it live. I've never done it before, but like, I'll give it a shot. And so I first did like a convention in San Francisco, I think was the first one. And there I met Nate Kapnicki, who's, you know, of the ISCA kind of caricature world, and eventually found ISCA. But I started, doing kind of small conference events, doing it live in that way. And then, you know, would do caricatures of people like celebrities and stuff on the side and did some jobs that were like caricature based.
Well, I think it's pretty. So the animation thing was always like your goal, right? Your main dream. I kind of feel that like the caricature thing is I feel is super important anyways, because like when you look at character design or animation, it's all caricature. Everything is, you know, and it's funny because when you were talking about like these guys that they don't really consider themselves caricature artists, but then they do these great caricatures. I had this book that I got years ago. About the the Batman animated series. You know, I loved that show when I was a kid, and I still like it. But I got that book, and I remember when you open it up, there's all these there's a bunch of caricatures that all the artists did of themselves. And I remember being annoyed when I saw that, because I'm like, wait a minute, no, you guys aren't, because I was like, oh, like, I'm a caricaturist, you know,
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys can't be good caricature artists. What are you talking about? Like, it would annoy me how good these animators were, you know. Years later, obviously, you know, I come to realize that that's why they're so good at what they do, because they obviously have, like, I mean, you can't do Finding Nemo and all this stuff without knowing caricature. You know, it's a very important foundation, I think. So for you and your work, one of the things I loved about the movie, the Mitchells versus the Machines, is there's so much. First of all, I can watch it with my 3-year-old, and she I don't know if she was following everything, but she just loves it. She thinks it's hilarious. I can watch it with a teenager, you know. And I enjoy it. My wife and I are dying laughing. But the character design is so strong, and there's so much character in there, that it's so much fun. Like, I watched it a few times now, and there's little details, like even to the background scenes. Like, I noticed like the windowsills, there's like chipped paint, and there's dirt, and there's there's all these things. I'm like, that is a real lived in home. That is a real, this isn't like you know, like, I love like The Incredibles. That's one of my favorite movies. And the design is great. You got that like kind of like 50s 70s era, like weird things, and everything's smooth and slick. But there's something so organic about this movie that you did that is like, it feels, even though like it's almost, I guess one of the things I like about it too is that it almost feels like a living sketch the whole time. Like, it's not quite super slick and tight, but it is, and there's like this organicness to it. So was that like a huge part of the, I mean, obviously there's got to be phases that you go through, like what's this movie going to represent or feel like? But I mean, it to me, it just feels like, wow, this is like, the whole thing is like a living piece of art. It's awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And everything you're saying is great to hear, because those were so many of the goals, you know. And it's really hard, like making places feel organic, or feel like our organic human world when you make them from scratch, because you don't get anything for free, you know, like a chip paint on a windowsill, like all that stuff is in the real world supernaturally. But when you make it from scratch, you have to like really fight and force for things to be a little more irregular. So it's something where you're constantly like having to just push it so that stuff reads on screen. So it's like great to hear, you know, that it does. But, you know, for me, whenever I talk about the movie, and I had kind of these dual roles of being character designer and also production designer, which kind of oversees the look and the style of the movie. So with that, like, I always describe production design like as caricature, because it's kind of the same principles, but you're doing it with the story and the script. So it's like you take like holistically the main ideas, like humans versus robots, and you caricature that. So it's like the robot world is like a caricature of like iPhone apps and stuff, and simple gradients and those colors. And then how do you kind of caricature the human world? And you edit, like, there's things in the human world that are our real world that can be like slick and symmetrical, but you kind of edit anything out that doesn't really support your main idea. And your main idea is you just do everything to kind of support those, you know, those features and ideas. And I feel like when you're doing caricature, it's a lot of the same thing, where you kind of find the main essence and what things can I do to support those ideas, what things do I need to pull out to, you know, have that kind of hierarchy of information clear. And so with all of it, whether it's like the overall, for us, like there's two big worlds of humans and robots, but also it's like you're following your characters and always trying to make that emotional story work. So with like, when you're lighting a sequence, you're caricaturing like the mood and stuff. So all of it, it's like you have to kind of make choices and exaggerate things so things feel more like what they should. So I feel like there's a similar like muscle that's at work. It's applied to a lot of different things like set design and lighting, but it's trying to push things as far as possible so that it feels like something and you feel the emotion and you feel the world and everything.
Yeah, I mean that definitely comes across for sure. I mean, it seems it's interesting too. Like I love, you know, character design types, you know, in animation movies, but I'm not. I'm it's all like foreign to me as far as, you know, I do illustration and everything. So
Yeah.
it's the process is so interesting to me. But when I watch the movie, you know, I'm like, it's still like I can't turn that part of my brain off. Like, man, this looks hard. Like this looks like a lot of work. Like, because you can tell there's a lot into it.
Yeah.
And you know, and this is, you know, I don't know what's going on with Sony. But like I think other animation companies better start being a little worried about Sony, because like for example, that Spider-Man movie,
yeah,
that blew my mind. I mean, I think a lot of people are like, I mean, that's, to me, it's just as good as any Spider-Man movie, period.
yeah.
It's so good. And did you work on that at all?
No, I didn't. No.
Okay, because I know there's some things. That's one thing I wanted to ask about is, I don't know if it's just a freedom, like Sony's like, hey, we don't want you to look like DreamWorks. We don't want you to look like Pixar. And you know, because I mean, I remember when Pixar like was first like just the big thing, all these animation movies were coming out, like just pumping out like crazy, and they were just terrible looking, all trying to be Pixar. But they just didn't have the talent. They didn't have maybe the right technology or whatever. But when I look at like the Spider-Verse, and when I look at the movie you did, there's an aesthetic that is like it almost in a way, it's almost like it reminds me of like Jack White. Like Jack White writes these amazing songs, and he'll do a guitar solo that's like, you know, just like the first part of it, it's like, okay, that's good enough. Like we didn't, but then he takes it and he does like, he basically orgasms on for like 5 minutes and does the most amazing guitar solo. And it's almost like he's saying, yeah, because you can't and I can. Like it's almost like I love Jack White, but there's certain guitar solos I'm like, he is just showing off how fucking awesome he is right now. And that's the vibe I'm getting from like the movie you did and Spider-Verse. I'm like, they are showing off. Like they are showing off. They're orgasming over everything. This is like, you know, I don't know how else to explain it, if that makes sense, but it seems like maybe you've got maybe more creative freedom or something, but there is like an aesthetic between both those movies that I feel like, I don't know, something about there's like a lot of like more drawing, it feels like.
Yeah.
Which I love so much. It's just different. There's a different vibe there. Like, do you guys have like a meeting like, this is what we're gonna do to kick everyone's ass, you know, like
yeah. I mean, maybe not exactly. There, you know, there's I guess ambitions of doing something like, you know, like I like with our director, there was a lot of like, let's make the best animated movie of all time. Yeah. This kind of energy, like, oh, let's make something that's, you know, that's different and fresh and cool and bold or whatever. But I think for me personally, it's always like, I think if things are really story driven and, you know, director driven and point of view driven, you're kind of then doing the best service to a certain story. And when there's freedom there, they end up being cool. I think if you're kind of like being calculating, like, how do we make the coolest, most different movies? I feel like it's a little hard. I think there's a key of like letting things be very director driven and having trust in those people. And I think with Sony right now, I feel like it's very supportive as far as like trying new things. You know, there weren't really points that we were showing things that there was that much fear, you know, like, and it's very likely to happen because I mean, it's a long time and a lot of money to make these things. So I understand how in some of these spaces, big companies, things can happen that maybe result in things kind of feeling similar, because you kind of have to break things a little bit to have them be a little bit more different. But yeah, Sony was super supportive of new things and super excited too about having, you know, unique movies, and I think unique from each other too. So that was, I think it was really great. I feel super fortunate as a, creative to be under a really great director. Another key thing too is we had really great like creative producers like Chris Miller and Phil Lord were overseeing us, and also they had done Spider-Verse and Claudia with a Chance of Meatballs, Lego Movie, a lot of great stuff. And so they also were really great at kind of supporting and pushing us, and they're very fearless too about like, yeah, let's have it look like, nothing we've ever seen before. And so that was a big kind of key thing too, that their support and kind of willingness to kind of fight for everything to, I think, really results in some cool projects.
Yeah, I can totally see this movie in a way as being revolutionary in the industry, because I can see a lot of people trying to copy some of the stuff that you guys did in the movie. Because I mean, it's really cool. Like it's got such a cool vibe. I want to talk about your character design a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's really good. Okay, I like it a lot. How do you do it? No, but there is such a, again, back with your caricature work, there's like you have like an aesthetic and a style that I can see it. I'm like, oh, that's you, and that's the cool thing about, like, some people just have like this distinct, like, oh, you can tell right away it's them. I'm just curious about your personal practice and study, and just how you develop with your character design work, because you have a very interesting look. It's very funny. I mean, I try to look at your work. I'm like what's the influence here? Because you've got some, just like I got like a couple images here I'm looking at, but just like the character design for the dad, for example. I mean, this stuff reminds me of like classic Mad Magazine, like almost Jack Davis-ish a little bit, but it's not. It's a very unique feeling, and I don't know. Here's the thing. I've seen a bunch of your work, but I mean, this is the aesthetic of this movie. I'm sure if you're probably working on another project right now, the characters aren't going to have that same feeling. I mean,
right.
But I'm just curious, like, what your influence is and how, like, just what the development is like for the characters, I guess.
For the, I guess I'll start on influences, which I'm not sure what I'm going to say. I feel like with that, it's hard. It's like, there's tons of character designers and illustrators and adjacent things too that I love. But as far as like, if I talk about this movie or something, I don't look super closely at existing references when I do character design. I feel like it's I don't know, it's kind of hard. I have to kind of like get really into who the characters are in the script and just try really hard to find that. And there's like style things that are a bit of, my own style. There's, I'm sure, things in my head from all the like artists that I see and admire, but it's not so much like I'm looking at, a specific artist and another one and trying to do like a fusion of them or anything. But I think for me, a lot of it, like for this movie in particular, a lot of the references, they more came from photography. I think it felt important that the movie felt really observed in like our real human world. And so like a lot of that is like people watching, so there's an element of like things in my head from just my observations of people that are in there. That's kind of hard to like Google and find. So I find that there's sometimes that looking at photographers can be helpful, because it's almost, it's kind of close to observation. So some of the ones that we referenced on the movie are actually more for the sets than the characters, but things like William Eggleston, Stephen Shore. But there's photographers like Martin Parr that has more people in it, or Stephen Struth, Tina Barney. But a lot of those were photographers where they're just kind of like capturing, I don't know, maybe it's like a bunch of people at the beach, or capturing different families, or capturing their parents at home. So I look at things like that. They're not super like direct references, but it's kind of like a feeling of things feeling real and observed. So I'll usually kind of find references that are like a couple degrees removed. So I'm not looking too closely at like another contemporary character designer. So I'll look at stuff like that. And then my process usually begins where I'll have some information on the characters. When I first started, it's like, a kind of a pitch Bible that the director puts together. And so he'd describe them, kind of describe kind of their relationships with other characters, like little details throughout the process that evolves into a script and then an animatic and stuff. So different points of the process, you're gaining more information on who they are. But I'll usually then just like, based on the information I have on who they are, I'll gather a lot of reference. And sometimes that's like using Facebook, honestly. And like, if there's somebody or different types of people that the character reminds me of, I might just kind of look at people, or like on this movie, it was like an art school student. So I'm kind of like browsing similar colleges, like websites and stuff, and just kind of like digging around. It's like a weird form of observation that's kind of like online stalking or something. Or it's like you find an actor that feels like the right type of person. It's like a common character design thing, like a question to ask your directors is like, you know, what type of person would you like to cast or feels like them? And so sometimes I'll be like watching, you know, interviews of a actor that is like the type of person is that. So you're kind of like pulling things and trying to capture things like, oh, this mannerism feels like them. And then I think when I'm in the process of drawing, I'll kind of have like videos on somebody that feels like the character. And then I'm just kind of trying things. I'm looking at my photo reference for different like costume ideas. I might like shop as if I'm the person, like, oh, this is where this person would shop. And I'll like browse on a website to see like, you know, what would the mom wear?
So
stuff like that. Yeah. So I'll kind of like try to get in the headspace of that character. And then you're just kind of drawing. And so it's a mix of where you're finding shapes and stuff that are right, but sometimes your costumes affect your shapes and stuff. So you're kind of gathering that reference and then playing them off of each other. And then I feel like it just kind of evolves into something where you're trying to kind of make them, like, clarity is a big thing in, you know, this world, and I think caricature too, and illustration. So it's like your characters need to be clear, like they need to look like who they are. You know, everything needs to kind of be kind of a clear, you know, you're nuanced about certain things, but clarity is kind of important. So it's like having them feel really like the character, and then having them like contrast each other in the right way. So it's a lot of like drawing them with the other ones to make sure there's variety there and the right contrast. It's a lot of balancing, you know, like for our movie, like the father-daughter relationship was big. So you're looking at them together a lot, looking at, you know, it just kind of evolves together. It all kind of grows together. And you know, eventually you're like, you know, finalizing characters, then making them in 3D. And
it's got to be such an awesome experience, like starting from the very beginning and then seeing it fulfilled. You know, it's got to be, you can finally share your work online.
Yeah.
Was that killing you? Like, I can't wait to show what I've been doing.
I know. Like that's definitely cool because it's been a while. I think between this project and the other ones, there was a long time where it was okay because I was working on this. So I had work, but I was like, man, none of my professional work after like, I don't know, 2012 is like,
I know. Well, it's kind of
online.
funny. I do the same thing where there's a lot of times I'm working on stuff that I can't show.
Yeah.
And I'll get people that write like, man, you haven't really shown anything for a long time. You keep like posting things that I've already seen before. And it's like, yeah, it's because I want to share it too, but I can't, you know?
Yeah.
I just love it so much. I think that your drawings are so great. I love looking at the sketches. And like with like the father, for example, one of the things that like when I'm watching the movie, when I look at your sketches, I'm like, that is based off of a real person. That has to be a caricature of a real person because it feels like so like that's the thing. I think that's a testament to how great this turned out, and I'm sure you feel very proud of it, and you should be. But it feels, even though it's cartoony, it feels like totally real.
Cool.
I believe that a great caricature is better than a portrait anytime.
Yeah, 100%.
And it feels that way to me. Like there's like such a nice. I love. Did you guys put out a book yet? Like the art of the book?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, I got to get that book. I love just like, you know, even like looking at the little details that, you know, that's why I'll watch it a few different times just to see like, all the quirkiness of just that car.
Yeah.
Like so much went into the design of that car, just like the weird angles and different things. And I'm like, oh, and for me as an illustrator, I'm like, oh, I gotta steal from that. You know, like there's some cool things I want to try to, if I ever draw a car, man.
Yeah.
Influenced by that. But yeah, it's just awesome. It's a really cool, it's gotta be a great thing to wake up and be able to go to work and work on something like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, totally. It was an amazing job, and amazing just to work too with a lot of really cool artists. You know,
Yeah.
that car was designed by Mike Isaac, and he's super brilliant. You get to just work with a lot of people that are brilliant in a lot of different ways too. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's kind of amazing. So that was really great, and just, you know, you have a shared goal, and it's great because it's like there's a lot of stuff that I'd kind of carry in my mind about like, you know, the car needing to feel like a character, it needs to feel really lived in, and where people are, there's food, it has to have like, you know, snacks, and the little boy should be placing his little dinosaurs, wedging them in the car, and like, how do you imagine people inhabiting it? And then you have like a brilliant art team that are like brilliant, you know, great ideas and great designers, and then, you know, you end up with something like the Mitchell's car, but it's a mix of like the design team, and then in 3D you're constantly having to like set dress it, or things that are there that you'll lose visibility on.
Yeah.
But there's like stains on the windows, and it's like, let's exaggerate those, because, you know, the texture paint team does work too. Then you have to kind of make sure it's all seen in the shots. But it's really cool, like working with, you know, a big team of artists to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, as far as, I mean, there's so many different elements that come together to do something like this. Was there anything that was like edited out, like taken out, where you're just like, oh, this is so, like, I mean, it's got to be one of the hardest things about working on something, because it's like, I imagine you putting 150% in, but only 100% is going to make it in the movie. like there's all this extra stuff that you did.
Yeah, totally. It's, you know, it's okay. Like, it's not something that I get super like upset about, because you end up becomes a part of the process. And especially when you understand like, okay, this is for this greater story need, but totally, you know, there's characters that get cut. There's tons of things that get cut. There's even things where there's like amazing jokes in the movie, or things that were like at times some of my favorite little parts of the movie that don't make it. And it's again, it's like the directors and story team are kind of, it's funny when you watch a movie, they seem long, and when you're making them, they seem really short. And so it's like your screen time matters so much. And so it's like something could be funny, but if it's, you know, if it's taking up too much time, or in that time, if you could say something that gives you a better, you know, set up for some emotional thing that's going to pay off better. So there's like, on this big scale, the directors are really working it so that it is the best movie possible. But sometimes that's, it's like sets getting cut, characters getting cut, like, or just like losing time, where that's, I think, one of the hardest parts for my job, is where it's hard to know sometimes how much attention to give something, because if you know something's going to be in the movie for one shot in the dark, you might not put as much time into it as something that's a bigger featured thing. And so sometimes that stuff shifts. And so you're like, oh man, this thing that ended up not being a big deal suddenly has a lot of screen time. And then this thing that we put a lot of time into is either cut or barely seen. So it's just something that for me was mostly like, you have to really, you know, try to keep up with this moving, evolving thing. Because in animation, the movies really get like worked and massaged till the very, very end. But yeah, there's plenty, you know, characters that get cut, little things that get cut, things that get changed. And
that would just drive me crazy. Like knowing, I was talking, I don't know if you know who Steve Byrne is, but he's a comedian. And he did a movie this last year called The Opening Act, and with Jimmy O Yang and Cedric the Entertainer. And there's a ton of comics in it. But he was talking to me about how, so do you know who Bill Burr is?
Yeah.
Okay. So Bill Burr is in the movie, and it's funny because he plays a real straight character where he's not really supposed to be funny. I think he's like some kind of a manager or a boss of some kind of just cubicle company. It looks like The Office, basically. I don't know what they're doing, but they're all working in some kind of cubicles.
Yeah.
And he's the kind of the douche boss who walks around and he's like, hey, so you're working on the papers, okay, blah blah blah, and he's walking around with his golf club, and but he's not really meant to crack too many jokes, but that's kind of ironic because it's Bill Burr.
Right.
But Steve told me that it just killed him so much because there's like so many clips of Bill Burr saying the funniest things and doing the funniest things, and that he wishes he could have released because people have to see how funny this is.
Right.
But it just took away from everything. It took away from the scene, the movie. He's not supposed to have that kind of, but Bill Burr can't help but being Bill Burr. And so he's like, there's so much gold that was just,
Yeah.
So I can imagine that time thing too. Like, I was thinking when you were talking, I was thinking like, I started I'm doing stand-up comedy now, as much as I can. And one of the most difficult things is right now I'm only at the point where I'm doing 5 minutes, which it's a lot to come up with 5 minutes, but I'm not doing, when I go to do a show, I usually only get 5-6 minutes. That's it. And so when I'm working on my material, like I can't wait till I get to the point where I get 10 minutes because I'm working on material right now. There's a lot of stuff I really like, a lot of things I think are funny. But it's like, once I start putting it together and I'm timing myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm already at 5 minutes. I had all this other stuff. And then I realized, oh, I got to take out this, like, I got to get to the main point, but there's so much, there's goodies that I got to put aside. And like, I'll save that for when I get 10 minutes. But so what am I going to do for 5 minutes? Like, how am I going to break this up? And it really does come down to that time. Like, what am I going to say that's most impactful in this amount of time? And it really helps you to edit and to, to break down, like, what is the whole point of this? Like, what am I trying to say?
Right.
But I can imagine on something like a movie like this, it's got to be so overwhelming because there's so many different gears spinning, and that's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, for me, when, characters getting cut is, I guess, the hardest, but, if like an angle of a room or a prop gets cut, like there was really great, like, fast food burrito that one of our designers did that's cut, but it's like a burrito. But I feel like you get more of what you're talking about too with the voice talent, because the voice cast on the movie was like awesome. And so they have a lot of stuff that they'll play around with and then they'll test and stuff, and for different reasons it might not end in. But I remember there were some takes of seeing, because Eric Andre's in it as the kind of tech CEO character, and there were like takes where he was hilarious. There are these screenings where he's kind of doing his own thing, but I think for that character, like, they were kind of, I think it evolved a little bit in it, and I think the version of the movie that exists is the best and works. But versions of, like, end credits where he's just kind of saying stuff, and there are so many takes that are like hilarious, but like there's stuff like that where when you get these crews of amazing comedians, there's all these like little gems, but it's hard to like have them all in the movie and have the movie work in a way that a movie needs to.
I mean, even I have no idea how this, I don't know if you're involved in this part of it or not, but like even the music in the movie is awesome. And I was watching, I'm like, how do you get permission to use some of these songs? I always wonder that, like, is that difficult to get some of these songs that you want to use? And when you're working on the movie, are you like, oh, this song would be perfect here, but we're never going to be able to get that song, like,
right. I have the least visibility on the music, but some of it I was surprised by too, because there was some stuff that, some things kind of start as scratch music where they're in there for the tone, and then it's gonna go. Like at one point, like there's a billboard of this like dino stop place they go to, and it used to be like the Jurassic Park music, and there's a point that they're like, you're not gonna get it. It's not gonna happen. Like don't get used to it. It was in there till like very late in production. But funny. There's other stuff that there's a point where you're like, oh yeah, this is what's staying in, because I don't really have any visibility on like where that stuff is at. We've got obviously like there's a big like Rihanna song in the end sequence that's like timed to that song and stuff. So it's like that one needs to work out. But the movie was hard for that with legal basically and just permissions and stuff. There's like a whole world of that. I
remember I didn't really think too much about that kind of stuff until like I heard I mean, I just assumed, oh, you're a movie company, you've got connections, you know, you can do whatever you want. But then I remember when I saw the Thor Ragnarok movie and everyone was making such a big deal about that Zeppelin song. And, you know, it's like it was just like, but it was such a perfect, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
It was such an awesome scene with that music. And then, you know, but when the first time I saw the movie, I just thought, oh, this is awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah.
What a great parody with everything.
Yeah.
And then I found out later, like how many millions they had to spend to use that song for like 30 seconds or well, not, I mean, that's just crazy. So like now, like when I watch a movie, like what you did, I'm like, oh, how did they get that song? Like who had to like sell their children or something like,
right. Yeah. It's a little bit more in like the producer's world to kind of get.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's cool though. It's there's so many things. That's when I was excited about talking to you because there's so many things. There's so many other things that we could talk about. Oh, you know what? I want to show you some fan art in a little bit because we got some fan art to show you.
Cool.
I say we as if there's more. It's just me. It's just me. But back to a very important question: are you an over or under with the toilet paper?
Oh. Wait, on the roll?
Yeah. I'm just wondering what kind of freak are you?
Over.
Yes, thank you.
That's like the way, right?
Yes, I always try to ask people. Well, this is something I'm going to start asking everybody.
Yeah.
Just because I you know, there's certain people. I was thinking about this when I was walking my dog. Like there's certain, you know, like I'm not a violent person, very nice person, very passive person for the most part, but like there's certain people that you just fantasize maybe they'll get hit by a bus or maybe you know somehow they'll just disappear. I don't know, you know, like people that don't put their shopping carts away at this like why can't you walk 5 feet, put the shopping cart away? You know what's wrong with you? If you can't put a shopping cart away, you're probably a backseat driver. There's probably so many things about you, you know, like the toilet paper roll. If people that put the toilet paper roll upside down, I'm sorry, but you're a fucking animal. There's something wrong with you. It drives me crazy. So anyways, I thought it was an appropriate question. Just curious.
No, it's fair. And I do it the right way then.
Yeah, good. I just wanted to see if I've been talking to a psycho this whole time or if you're cool. So but I have like a generic caricature question because I mean a lot of the people that listen to this are really into caricature art. I mean, I've had friggin' Patrick, the drummer for the Black Keys, on my podcast, which was I've kind of known him online for a few years, but just friendly chat, like, and I couldn't believe he agreed to do it. Like nobody watched it, like, and like I've had some other like huge like people like that, where I'm like, what the heck? But if I put a caricature artist on here, oh God, I get all the views. And it's like, dude, the Black Keys, like one of my favorite bands. I just find it very funny. I'm like, whatever. So for the caricature people that love this podcast, I'm just curious about your mind, your thinking when you're starting something. Okay. What's your first go-to? Do you think about the overall shape right away? Or are you thinking relations with features? Like how do you start something like when you're going to draw somebody?
Good question. Sometimes it's different depending on the person, but I feel like for me it's usually a little like an essence thing, which sounds kind of annoying, but I think it's usually like I'll watch a lot of interviews of somebody and there's usually something about the way that they're carrying themselves or talking or singing or expressing themselves that's kind of interesting. And so it's a mix of, I think, those things of like a person when they're the most themselves and doing something in combination with their features. And it's a little sloppy, I think, the way I work. Like I'll look at something and I'll just do a ton of sketches and throw everything away and do something and redo it. You know, like I'll do a lot of really loose sketches where there's usually some like attitude that's in there that there'll be like the stupidest thing I do that I'll like the best, but it's like not really a caricature, you know, it'll be like a line with a couple like scribbles or something like super, super primitive. And then I feel like it's a mix of then, just getting everything that's in a face into a design that has that essence. But I find that like, I love it, but I find it's really hard. Like when I'm doing caricature, I'm like, I get super addicted to it and kind of obsessed with like, it's not them yet. Or like, that's not it yet. It doesn't look, you know, it doesn't look more satisfying than the real thing. Or like if it's a video that I'm looking at, which I kind of always am, they keep doing things that are like interesting and you're like, it captures this thing, but not this other thing. And so I just kind of fixate for a while and then kind of keep massaging it into the person. And so I guess with that, it's a mix where I think about form maybe in an unconventional way, you know, like it's there in a way that I think about it. And depending on the face, it might be more of a thing or less of a thing. But I don't think I'm I don't think I've like formed first. Like when I look at things, I'm not usually like seeing the shape of a head first and blocking it in a I don't want to say conventional, but in like a fundamental way. I feel like it's a little bit more like this kind of wandering, like, oh, that's a weird shape in the eye. You know, like they'll usually just be, depending on the person, something that kind of interests me, and I'll kind of start there and build it within. And this form is iconic, or this form supports, like, I don't know, this shape, but it really depends on the person. Like for some people, I feel like structure is a thing I'll notice. It just depends. Like if it's someone where like their cheekbones are really dominant, I feel like then I'm kind of thinking about structure of a face. But then there's some people where it's like, it feels more like line to me, where there might be an interesting shapes of like, you know, around their eyes, or maybe there's like wrinkles in a way that there's interesting pattern. And so then I'm more playing with line or something. And then, you know, there might be a motif that comes out of like a specific face, and then I'll kind of be reacting and balancing and designing around that, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. You like to explore a little bit. Yeah. So you don't usually just sit down and just draw someone. Like you're not like, you know, I mean, it's funny because I relate to a lot of what you just said. I do a lot of like, depending on the deadline, if I have a quick deadline, I kind of just, you know, and also I don't really usually get to exaggerate a ton. Like they don't want like some crazy thing. Sometimes you can get away with it. So it's more like, hey, I'm just going to try to do a really good likeness and make it funny as I can. But like when I get the opportunity to exaggerate more, I love to do that. I like to just do as many thumbnails as I can and just really push the shapes and have fun with it and see like what feels the same. It's the essence thing. Yeah. So you want it to feel like them. And that's what I love. Like, again, like that Elon Musk, I'm like, damn, it's so good. It's such a good caricature.
Oh,
there's a lot like that are really good. I really love it. Gosh, what was the other thing I was going to tell you? I can't remember now. Whatever. It probably wasn't very important. There was something I was going to mention, but anyways, I have caricatures and portraits, I believe. I'm not sure exactly if there's any portraits, but of you, some fan art. Cool. Speaking of caricature, let me show you some fan art real quick. Let me share my screen. Where is it? Okay, here it goes. So let me know if you see this.
I do.
All right.
Cool.
All right. So this first one is by Ray Shipman.
Awesome.
Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. I remember now. I think it's interesting too, like, you know, as someone that does caricature and that sort of a thing, and it's sometimes it blows my mind still when I see certain caricatures where I'm like, what were they thinking? Like, I would never have thought to do that, and it still looks just like the person. And some things just don't make sense. Like the year that I met you, My best friend Grieger came along and he won the gold nosy and all that.
Yeah.
And there was a caricature he did, and I'm blanking on her name right now. I'm so sorry. But I don't know if you remember, he put two boards together to make her nose extra long. I don't know if you remember that one, but like, and it's funny because it's spot on.
Yeah.
It looks exactly like her. He nailed it. But I'm like looking at her. I'm like, what the heck? She doesn't have a crazy long nose.
Yeah.
She has a really long neck, and I would have probably taken that route. But the nose, I'm like, I don't think she has a long nose like that, and I wouldn't have gone there. But somehow it works, and it was awesome.
That's what I love about caricature too, because I'll find that even in my own work, where there might be a loose thing I do, and I'll do some choice, and then when I spend more time with it, I'm like, that's not really what it is, and I'll make it more of what it is, and I'm like, well, it looks less like them somehow. But it's interesting how, like, I feel like our ability to kind of project, like you can see a face in so many things. Like, I think we're good at recognizing things as human or people, but it's like the flexibility that exists that things can still feel like someone is super interesting. And like, like you're saying, like the kind of infinite ways it can be, but it's really interesting where you're like, oh yeah, this thing, sometimes cool. That's awesome. But sometimes I'll get a kick out of that, where it's like, oh, interesting. Like, it's not so much that thing is like that, but if this thing is in some different way that it sometimes even is, it makes something feel like more than what it is, and somehow it ends up feeling like the person, but it feels like such a infinite game, like,
it is interesting. This is by Victor Gatman.
Awesome. I love it.
Butchering the name. This is funny too. I really like this because this is sort of like when you first pop on the screen. In a way, this is what I see right away. So this is it's funny. There's a caricature I did years ago that is one of my favorite ones I've done, of John Kerry, and it's funny because it turned out exactly how I was seeing it in my mind, and it's a funny exaggeration and everything. Years later, I found the reference that I worked from, and I looked at it, and it's like, how in the world did I even get that drawing from this reference? It was so different. It was weird, and my caricature looked more like John Kerry, where I'm like, the photo of him doesn't even look like him to me. It's weird how that works. It's strange.
Nice.
It's like this. This is like this would be a great Muppet,
Yeah, totally.
This is by Dustin Clark.
Cool.
Yeah, this is
cool.
This one makes me laugh for some reason.
It's fun. I like the quality of it. Cool.
This one is by Mark Schmid.
Nice.
Interesting approach.
Fun. I like the take on the eyebrows.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Cool.
Now it looks like the head is opening. That's what I'm seeing here. But what's inside?
It's mysterious.
Is he trying to say you have no brain? Like,
no, it's all I see.
It's just smoke. This is by Mr. Pants.
Nice.
Death.
Wait, that's
to idiots. I don't know what that says. Long live art. Very nice. Very voluptuous.
I know. Yeah, something. I'm not sure if everything's accurate, but a nice painting. Yeah.
That's funny. This is by Dominic Zeilinger.
Nice.
Very cool.
Cool. Nice design.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
This is funny too.
That's cool.
This is by Paula Petlawani.
Oh, awesome. I love it.
I think she says I asked her what the medium. I think it's acrylic maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'd guess.
Yeah. I love this one.
I love this too.
This is by Pablo Salas.
That's right.
It's so cool. Like, it's
so good.
So the simple, like the line, but it's like, Gosh, so direct. I want to see how he
rad.
draws this stuff. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that's rad.
There you go. This is by
Cool.
someone just said, I think their name is just Oren. I don't know the last name.
Mm-hmm.
But this is interesting too.
Cool. Yeah.
It's a little bit creepy. Like if I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and my eyes weren't open all the way and I saw this, I might like pee my pants or something. It's a little scary.
Yeah. There's some cool like illustration choices. I like this like flattening of that dress I had.
Yeah, it is interesting and it's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. This is by Tun Akari. I think.
Cool.
Oh, I forget. Malaysia. I think he said he was from Malaysia or something like that.
Yeah, it looks like it.
So
cool.
It looks.
Cool.
It does. Oh, it says it down there.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, you're correct.
That's funny. Yeah, he sent me he said, like, tell her I'm from Malaysia. So, well, it's on the drawing. Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Tom.
This is is a sketch by Jacques Lemonnier.
Nice. I love the line, the like energy.
Yeah. It's interesting. That one that you were talking about, the eyebrows, how they're like twists and stuff. Yeah. It's interesting. I can kind of, from this sketch, it almost feels very similar. So it's interesting what they're picking up on different people. Yeah. That's funny. This is Eric Goodwin.
Nice. Yeah. That's awesome. I love it. So, I always love Eric's stuff.
Yeah, this is pretty hilarious. So I want to try to understand this a little bit. Obviously the eyebrows, and again, I like how he definitely got some crazy ass eyebrows.
Yeah.
But this is the thing that I'm not getting here. What is the thing with the other eyeballs? Like it looks like a worm thing. What is that? You see what I'm saying? I
do see what you're saying.
Like, what is that supposed to be? So you got your hair coming down.
I see the hair. I see that.
Like, what is that? It's like, do you have like a ringworm or something? I don't know.
I wonder, is it an earring? It could be I'm wondering if it has something to do with the movie, like if it's a little puppet. Because I drew a lot of puppets on things. So it kind of has that palette to me of some of the elements from there. But I'm not sure if that's right. Maybe it's like an earring or something, but it's cool.
Yeah.
All of the rest of it, I know exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Accurate.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Yeah.
All right, that's awesome. Eric, you gotta tell me what that other thing is. Don't keep dude, you don't like analyze the work, man. It speaks to everyone in a different way, you know.
Maybe it's like my arm. Like it kind of looks like my posture, like that curve.
Oh maybe. My!
I think it's an arm with a puppet on it. That's what I think.
Okay. Now that you said posture, like that looks like a shoulder punch.
I've got that artist posture.
That's funny. That could be it.
That might be it with a long sleeve with the puppet.
And what's behind it? Bread? I just noticed it's like
it's bread.
Bread.
It's bread.
Are you like into bread or something? Like, is that?
I'm not particularly. Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm nothing against bread. I don't know that I'm particularly into it, but potentially in the same way that I think that that's a puppet sleeve that's referencing some of the Mitchell stuff I've been doing. I wonder, it might be in that there was a bunch of like bread, like the dog was a loaf of bread and a lot of like photos of bread we used. So
that's funny.
That might be why. Or there's some other kind of smart play on something that
Eric, you have stumped us. It's funny though.
He's ahead of us.
Yeah, he's way ahead. This is another one. This is by Valentine.
Cool.
This is cool. I love the color and brushwork on this.
Yeah, the colors rad.
Scary. Looks scary.
And I'm a frightening.
This was the last one. Nice work. This is awesome.
Awesome. Thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody for submitting work. That's so cool. So we did it. It's been an hour. It's been an awesome time talking with you. Before we end this thing, is there anything you want to let people know going on, and also where they can find you and all that good stuff?
Yeah. Going on, not too much, but you can find me, I guess, all my stuff's kind of the same. It's just my name. Instagram is Lindsey Olivares, website Lindsey Olivares, Twitter Lindsey Olivares, and I'll pop up. But yeah, I think that's about it. But thank you so much for having me. It's
thanks
to chat.
Yeah, this is awesome. And congratulations again on the movie. It's awesome.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see the next stuff that you're working on, because I'm sure it's going to be killer. It's really cool. So hey, keep up the good work, kid.
Thank you.
So thanks so much for the chat, and thanks everyone for watching and supporting the podcast, and we will see you all next time.
Awesome.
You want answers? The truth shall set you free. I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.